Yeah, it's like, well, they're still breathing, so
Right, right. As long as they're
there's no
alive when
blood.
we come home, we're good.
There's no blood, they're breathing. It's fine. Let's go.
From latchkey kids to helicopter parents, join us for a generational showdown. This is You Turned Out Okay with Mrs. B.
It is 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are? If you grew up in the 70s, 80s, or early 90s, that sentence did not mean panic. It meant a commercial break. Your parents weren't checking a location app. They weren't texting other parents. They weren't forming a search party. They were watching television. And if you were home, awesome. If you weren't, you were probably where you said you would be or not. Fast forward to now, we know where our kids are at all times. We know what they ate, how they slept, what mood they were in, maybe even their oxygen saturation while they were sleeping, and whether or not they finished their snack. There are apps, there are portals, there are group texts with other moms that somehow start at 6:30 in the morning and never stop, ever. And somewhere in the middle of all that, there are Gen X parents raising young kids in a parenting culture that looks nothing like the one that we grew up in. Not sure when Be Home by Dark turned into text me when you leave, text me when you arrive, text me when you're thinking about leaving, and also send me pictures. So today I am sitting down with a fellow Gen Xer raising a young child to talk about what it's like parenting with instincts shaped by a very different childhood. We're talking independence, oversight, and how much supervision kids actually need to grow up okay. Because we weren't raised with constant monitoring, and yet somehow we turned out okay. So today I have a very special guest. Hey, Becky.
Rachel, how are you?
I'm well. How are you doing?
I'm fantastic.
All right. And tell me, how old is your daughter now?
She is 5.5. She'll be 13 in July.
Yeah,
So she's
exactly.
in kindergarten right now. She'll be starting first grade in the fall.
Oh, awesome. And Becky and I are both Gen Xers. I'm obviously on the older end of the Gen X timeline, and she's on the younger end. But I wanted to have Becky on because I feel like our sensibilities are so similar. And even though we're, maybe 10 years apart in age, I think we probably grew up with that Gen X sensibility. So what I'm experiencing as a grandma with a millennial parent, I mean, I can't even imagine being a Gen X parent surrounded by millennial parents. It's like a whole different level of,
Yes.
sometimes differences, right? So let me ask you, that phrase, it's 10 p.m., do you know where your children are, instantly takes me back. Does it take you back? And when you think about that, what does it mean to you as a parent now?
So I remember it usually came on right before the 10 o'clock news. It's like whatever sitcom ended, and then it would be it's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are? And sometimes I'd be sitting on the couch next to my parents. Sometimes I'd be out, not usually where I said I'd be. Um, thank God there was no social media then. Um, but it was kind of like, you know, do you know where your kids are? Because how many people did or didn't know where their children were at that
Right.
moment in time? And depending on how old they were, sometimes we'd be out running around the neighborhood and it would be okay. Usually we had to be in by dark. But if we were playing in my yard and the next door neighbor's yard, as long as we didn't have neighbors complaining, we were fine to stay out.
It's interesting. That phrase to me just kind of sums it all up. It really does. It was, obviously we had so much freedom. The government felt a need to ask our parents where we were,
Right.
right?
Yeah. Like,
It's
hey, remember
crazy.
you are parents, right?
Yeah, exactly. So when you think about freedom when you were a kid, what stands out to you most raising a young child today? Kind of juxtapositioning that with the freedom you had.
Yeah, so I was a latchkey kid at 6. Um,
Wow.
yeah, and I mean, it wasn't for a huge amount of time. I think there was maybe 30 minutes, maybe an hour from the time I got home from school and my dad got home from work, and then we'd go pick up my brother from daycare because he was 2 years younger than me. So I look at my daughter now, and she'll be 6 in July, starting first grade in the fall, which is how old I was. And I look at her and just how small she is, and I'm thinking, what the hell were my parents thinking? I mean, granted, I have the covers on the gas stove knobs, and I knew it then I couldn't touch the stove, and we didn't have a microwave yet because those weren't, I don't think, invented at that point, or they were hideously expensive. I can't remember. But that's one thing that stands out. I look at her and I think of my own experience, and then a year later, not only was I a latchkey kid, but I had to look after my younger brother who was 2 years younger than me at the same time while we waited for my parents to get home from work. So that's one of the big things that, I had this independence of a whole house at 6 years old with, my parents trusted me to not talk to strangers. I, couldn't answer the door, couldn't pick up the phone, couldn't turn on the stove. I could make myself a snack as long as it came from the refrigerator or the cabinet. Um, yeah, that's one huge thing that sticks out is that, and I think now there's laws that say your kid can't be left unattended under the age of 13, which is why all these after school programs go to like 7th grade and camps go until 7th, 8th grade because you can't leave your kid alone. And I remember not realizing that until I said something, and this was way before I had kids because I didn't have a kid, I knew better. And a coworker is telling me about how expensive the after school programs were for her child. And I was like, why don't you just leave your kid alone? She's what, 10? She's like, oh my God, I'd get arrested. It's like, oh, okay.
And I swear the younger generation can't even wrap their head around this. Like,
No.
I'm sure that there will be people listening to this going, seriously? We're like, yes, we are not kidding about all of this.
Yeah, and like another wild thing too is we were expected to be outside at all times, don't be
Yeah,
in the house. I need my peace and quiet. Go play outside with your friends. Well, did anybody put sunscreen on us when we went outside to play with our friends? No, but if we were at the pool, going to the beach, running through sprinklers, yeah, that's when the sunscreen came out. But other than that, no sunscreen. And now you just think about going outside with your kid for 5 minutes, like, oh, you have to put sunscreen on. Do you have sunscreen? It's
right.
yeah.
Yeah. No sunscreen, if anything, baby oil, and you lay up on the roof, right? Nobody said a
Yeah, well,
word.
we had a reflective mattress for the swimming pool, so I'd do baby oil, reflective mattress, and then I'd go sit in the swimming pool and I'd fry one side one day and then I'd fry the other side the next. My
Yeah,
dermatologist now loves me.
yeah, that's a plan. That was a plan. So, do
Mm,
you feel like your parenting skills, like when you first entered parenting, right? You're only coming with the knowledge in your childhood, right?
mhm.
So,
Yeah.
what was it like to have these instincts that were shaped by a very different world, right? And a very different situation than you're raising your daughter in now,
Um, well, it was weird because when Maddie was born, it was during COVID. So, what I thought it would look like going into maternity leave and what it actually was were two totally
right?
different things. So I wasn't able to really interact with other parents, um, for a while. It was probably when she was about 2 months old, and I started a music group with her that I started interacting with other parents. But even that was a little off putting because everybody seems so intense and very rigid. And, uh, and I don't know, I might get blowback for saying this, but it's like, "Oh my gosh, my kid has to nap by this time," and it was like the nap
Right.
police. And
Right.
I knew she had to take a nap. I'm like, "Well, you know what? I need to do this, and since I'm out, she can just nap in the stroller." And maybe
Right.
I created a problem with my kids' sleeping habits, but, whatever. It feels like everything's very rigid, and very scheduled. And I was kinda like, it's she'll sleep, she'll fall asleep. She knows when she's tired. Everybody was more into reading books and, you know, being online and looking stuff up. And I was like, well, there's how many books on how many different topics, and everybody has an opinion on how to do it. So I drive myself crazy doing this because I'm so OCD, um, that I just didn't read anything and I just went with the flow. And I think some people are kind of shocked that I did that because
Yeah.
like I turned out okay,
Right, exactly.
just trying to use common sense.
Well, you know what? It's interesting because I feel like a lot of new moms and even my daughter-in-law, they're scared to make a mistake.
Yeah.
And I think that's where it comes from, and I don't know, and granted, look, it's a different world than it was,
Mhm.
but still some of it, when you know they're safe and they're in a loving environment,
Mhm.
there's still that sense of, "Am I doing this right?" And I don't know, I don't think our parents thought once if they were doing anything right or not. I
No.
think they just did,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, it's like, well, they're still breathing, so
Right, right. As long as they're alive when we come home, we're good.
there's no blood, they're breathing. It's fine. Let's go.
Yeah. Do you remember one moment or kind of incident or something that happened when you were like, "Oh, the world has changed. Parents around me are doing things differently." I mean, was there any one moment where you were like, "Oh," like for me, it was, my first episode, "Don't Kiss the Baby." I was like,
Yeah.
"What do you mean?" Right? So I'm
Yeah.
wondering if there was any aha moment for you.
I mean, I think there's definitely more boundaries now than there were when we were younger. Um, thinking about "Don't Kiss the Baby," I remember going to relatives' houses, and there's always that family gathering where there was that 1 or 2 relatives, and you only saw them at that family gathering once a year at a funeral or at a wedding or something. But you were still expected to go over and give them a hug and a kiss, even though you never saw these people. You couldn't pick them out of a lineup.
Right.
Whereas now it's, well, if you don't want to, you don't have to.
Yep.
And that I thought was great. Um, and just like some of the more boundaries that were in place, with that, trying to think if there's anything else that sticks out.
That's a big one for families these days. It's,
Yeah.
the idea is if you're not comfortable hugging somebody, you shouldn't have to hug them.
Yeah.
And, and again, it's one of these things where like, ugh, we went through this and we turned out okay. But there were also, I don't know that it was teaching us to protect ourselves and to set our
Right.
own boundaries, right?
Right.
Especially as women. So, you know, but that is one in a family because there are a lot of grandparents and quote unquote elders that feel it's disrespectful, right?
Yeah.
So that's an interesting one.
Yeah. I mean, what I find is disrespectful is when you say hi to a child and they just kind of like stare at you or something. And it's like,
Right.
okay, I know you can talk because I just heard you yelling your head off, but you can't say hi to somebody. It's like that I find a little weird.
Yep. Yep.
Um, it's like I understand being shy, but there's also, not being an
Right.
asshole.
Right.
You
Exactly.
know,
And back then you would have been in trouble.
just,
Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
mean,
It would not have been good.
yeah, and also some of this stuff too. I mean, um, like the gentle parenting, where it kind of becomes permissive parenting.
Right.
Because I see some stuff these days on the playground, and I'm thinking if I would have pulled that as a kid, oh my gosh, like I would have gotten spanked right then and there. Not like spanking's great, and I don't do it with my kid.
Right.
But I totally would have had some sort of public punishment and shaming before going home and getting grounded and everything
Right.
else that came with 80s parenting.
Yeah. So so those are some we talk about modern parenting trends.
Mhm.
There are definitely some that I appreciate. Is there another trend that you really appreciate, with the modern parenting?
I think it goes the phrase when you know better, you do better. Uh,
Yeah.
but I'm also surprised, but also, kind of in a happy way. When I went out and rode a bike, there was no helmets. When I went roller
Yeah.
skating in the middle of the street, there was no helmet. And now when you take your kid out on their, scooter, whatever, there's a helmet.
Yeah.
I took my kid on her bike, there's a helmet. The fact that playground equipment now is some kind of plastic rather than the metal that got to 150 degrees in the
Yeah.
sun.
Yeah.
That's a welcome change. And I mean, I'm kind of not really on board, but the squishy playground,
Yeah.
it's like, come on, where's the asphalt that we skinned our knees on, you know?
Right.
I think it does make sense to have a helmet on, but at the same time, I think I turned out okay
Right.
not having a helmet.
Right, exactly. How many concussions do we have and not realize we had them? Yeah.
Right, exactly, exactly.
So, has there anything that has surprised you about millennial parents? Maybe you going into, an interaction kind of stereotypical, or is there anything where you're like, oh, we grew up in a different time, in a different
I
world?
I feel like there's a little bit more where they think they're like, we all should believe their kid is the center of the universe.
Yeah,
And I have repeatedly told my daughter, yes, you are the center of mommy and daddy's universe and grandma and grandpa's universe. But when you leave our apartment and you go out into the world, you are not the center of anyone's universe. You have to go out and function and prove yourself because not everybody's going to love you like mommy and daddy and everybody else love you. And I think
that's
that's kind of
wow.
missing a little bit, where they
I
think it's like my kid's the most precious, and it's like, okay, well, no, my kid's the most precious and cutest, but okay. Um, um, that's one thing I found.
I got a little goosebumps with that one because I've
Really?
never heard that expressed so well. Because it is true. I mean, I think with my kids, raised them that way. They know they are my sun and the moon. But
Mm,
if they were at somebody's house, they were a guest. Or if they were in
mhm,
the grocery store, misbehaving was not okay because there were other people around. And I think it's one of the things for me as, a Gen Xer and I see children and I see some of the behaviors, that's one of the things that makes me a little crazy. But
mm,
and I just love the way you phrase that. I think that's such a great way to say it, honestly. Because you don't want to diminish who they are, but
yeah.
we do live in a world with other people.
And some stuff might be a little over the top because, look, they grew up in social media, more of a digital childhood than what you and I had. So certain experiences, it's almost like it's curated to be on social media rather than just in the moment.
Oh, I see that a lot. Like photo shoots and,
Mhm.
all kinds of things. And
Yeah.
speaking of social media moments, let's talk about birthday parties.
When did it become okay to invite the entire frickin' class? I'm sorry. I mean, all right, my birthday parties as a kid were you and 7 of your friends, which coincidentally there were 8 plates in the theme party pack and 8 napkins in the party pack and 8 gift bags. So no wonder why my mom was like, "Okay, you can invite 7 friends," because then she only had to buy 1 party pack. And also,
Right.
why do you want more than 8 people in your house?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I mean, granted, it's a little different. I live in New York City. I live in an apartment. I can't have 8 kids running around my apartment having a birthday party. Not if I wanna stay living here. Um, but, I lived in a house in the suburbs, so having 8 kids over for cake and ice cream and party games and opening gifts was fine. Or my parents would take us to the movies with our friends, and we'd come back for cake and ice cream. It was much smaller, more intimate, whereas now it's, "We're gonna invite the whole class so everybody feels included," and it's like, well, that kinda also goes to participation trophies, but that's another conversation.
Right.
But,
Right.
so parents now have to rent out a huge space to accommodate 30 kids. And because being at a certain age, at least one parent has to come with. And then
Hmm.
is, oh, well, this kid has 2 siblings. So do I invite the siblings or, can both parents come instead of one parent? I mean, it gets
Wow.
crazy, and schools will teachers will not distribute invitations. So if you come in and you wanna do a paper invite, you better have an invite for the whole class, otherwise the teacher's not handing them out. And there's even some schools that have a policy about, well, if you're gonna have birthday parties, you have to invite the whole class, which I find ridiculous because how are you going to dictate to me how I spend my out of school time and my money?
Oh my god, that's crazy. I have
Yeah.
never heard that. Well, and even the sibling thing. Wow.
Yeah, there's whole things like you go on any parent chat for any neighborhood and it's like, "Oh, I'm having a birthday party for my kid who's turning 5 and I'm inviting the whole class of, I mean, thank God they're reducing the class sizes here in New York City. So there's 20 kids in the class plus a parent, so that's 40 people right there. How do I write siblings aren't included because that'll blow my budget,
How
you
did
know?
siblings ever even get included? This one's blowing me away because,
Think it
like,
comes to that entitled presumptive mindset where it's like,
right,
"Oh, well, kid A is included, so surely that means my other precious offspring can come to the birthday party."
gosh. All right. A lot of the changes that I'm discovering through these conversations come out of it being a different world. But this birthday party where siblings have to be invited and the whole class has to be invited, and especially rules around it, I think are the biggest thing. Like, I can't believe
Yeah,
there's rules around it.
I mean, for Maddie, we didn't do friend parties until her last party. She turned 5. I mean, before that, we just
Right.
did small family dinners, and we are also coming out of COVID and everything else.
Right. Right.
So she started getting invited to kids' birthday parties when she was 3 because she was in 3K at the time. So she's getting invited to birthday parties. And then once she turned 4, um, she was getting invited to more parties and started asking, "Mommy, when am I going to have a birthday party?" And I'm just like, "Oh man." So we had a birthday party. We ended up, I think there was 20 some odd kids there, but that also included some of the siblings because the siblings do play with Maddie and some were infants, so it's like, whatever, come anyway.
Right.
But these were like people we knew. I didn't invite her entire class. I mean, I think we ended up inviting maybe 5 kids from her class, and the rest were just kids she knew from the playground, kids who she'd previously went to school with, people who my husband and I hang out with, and we like them, and we invited their
Right.
kids. We didn't invite the whole class. We still ended up having, almost 60 people, but, hey,
Did you get any blowback on that from the other moms in the class, or no?
I don't think they really knew because Maddie's birthday, she's the first week in July.
Okay, so
Uh,
summer. Yeah.
yeah, so I ended up having it the Saturday after school let out. And I also did e-invitations too, so there weren't paper invites.
Yep, yep.
Yeah, so I don't know. If
Yeah,
if
it
anybody felt insulted, I haven't heard about it.
well, it's funny, I have one of my questions is kind of about the schools. It's like, do you feel more supported by schools, or just more monitored? What's the role that the schools play?
Well, one thing for sure, there was a form my mom had to fill out, at least when I was in elementary school. I can't remember if it was in middle school or high school, but you had to sign a slip saying that it was okay for the principal to use the paddle on you if
Right.
you got out of line, and they could spank you with a paddle in the school
Yep.
if you whatever your behavior was, they thought it was that outrageous. And my mom
Right.
always made a thing to say, "I just signed the permission slip that said the principal can spank you with the paddle if you get out of line at school."
Right.
That would never happen today.
Nope.
Yeah, that would never ever happen today. I think they're overwhelmed, to be honest. There's less money than there used to be, trying to do more with less.
Right.
Um, and that, I mean, when we went to school, all we had to do was bring like a box or two of Kleenex and some tennis shoes in case you weren't wearing sneakers on gym day. Oh my gosh. Maddie, I have to send her to school with Kleenex, paper towel, hand wipes, like Clorox wipes, crayons,
Right.
the whole nine. I mean, I'm not going to be surprised if they ask me next year to send in paper towel and toilet paper for the bathrooms. I mean, that's next. But yeah, I feel like if your kid needs help, there's more resources for that. But aside from that, when there's been issues with kids and, bullying, I think that's more aware than what it
Yeah.
ever was when we were kids.
Yep.
They just had an assembly at my daughter's school about that, and they talk about the different types of bullying. It's not just physical, but it's also mental, verbal bullying
Sure.
as well. It's
Sure.
not somebody coming up and throwing punches at you. So I think that's good. I also feel like they're more in tune with mental health
Yep.
than what they ever were when we were in school.
Yeah, and there are definitely everything you just said is
Yeah.
better. I mean, I don't think there was anybody that wasn't bullied at some point in their life, right?
No.
And
No.
that's awful. But I also wonder, do we ever worry that all of the safety that we've got, that we're going to lose that sense of resilience with our kids? And I'm not coming down on, we don't necessarily need all of this, but I think there's also something to be said for resilience, right?
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
and confidence and all of that. So I guess time will tell, right? Maybe the answer's
Yeah.
somewhere in the middle.
Yeah,
Yeah.
trying I mean, it's so tempting to be a helicopter parent, just be like, "Oh, let me
Yeah.
fix that for you," and it's like,
Right.
"Well, you know what? It's let them fail and find out, let them figure it out on their own."
It is really hard to do it. I really, was raised very independently, a lot of freedom. And I remember my youngest son, I think he was in 8th grade. Now he's 28. So it was a while ago, but he did not like his English teacher. Did not like her and would come to me. He's like, I don't like her. I want
Mhm.
to get out of her class. And I remember saying to him, I'm like, Alex, I hear you. This is what I want you to do. If this is really a problem, go to your guidance counselor,
Mhm.
tell them what's going on, and let's set up a meeting. And once the meeting, have them call me and I will come in and do the meeting. But I want you to go to your guidance counselor.
Mhm.
And in the end, he didn't, because I think he got over it, or he figured
Yeah.
out a way to work with her. So that was a big strategy of mine, because I didn't want to completely blow them off, my kids.
Mhm.
I wanted to do what was best for them. I also didn't want a helicopter. So for me, it was always with them, you got to meet me halfway. I'll be there, but I'm
Yeah.
not fixing this. I will support you in your efforts to fix it.
Yeah, because there's times Maddie'll come up to me and she'll tell me, something happened at school, whether it was to her or one of her friends, or if one of her friends said or did something mean to her. And I'd try to say, well, how did that make you feel? Or why do you think she said that to her? Because some of the things that she tells me kids say to her, I know it's because an adult has said it to them.
Right. Right.
Because there's no way a kid would know how to say that. And I've said it to Maddie saying, well, do you think maybe that an adult said that to them and made them feel crummy and they wanted to make you feel crummy at the same time? And she's like, yeah. And, just trying to give her tips and strategies of what to do when that happens.
Right.
And also, the difference between when to tell a teacher, when not to tell a teacher, like, what's tattling versus what's reporting.
Right. And to me, that's kind of where the sweet spot is. It's You're
Hmm.
supporting them, but you're helping them work through how they can solve the problem.
Yes.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
Whether it's internal or whether it's external, what's the best way for you to solve it? Mom or dad aren't going to solve it necessarily for you.
exactly.
Right, right. And maybe that's the mixture of the Gen X in this world. I don't know. But, that's kind of where we were. We needed to solve our own
Yeah,
problems. I mean,
yeah.
to a detriment, obviously,
Mhm.
because we're now all rebelling and talking about it. But, if I think about anything with our generation, it's like you're on your own, figure it out.
Yeah, it's like, "Best of luck
Yeah.
to you."
Exactly. Hey, you survived biking without helmets, water from hoses.
Right. Well, even now so how it's changed with school, nobody cared about hydration and snacks. You went to school, if you were thirsty, you used a drinking fountain, you ate your school lunch, and then you went home and had a snack, and if you got hungry in between, too bad, you had to deal with it. Now we're sending our kids to school with snacks so that they
Oh,
can. Yes. Yeah, so I send Maddie with a water bottle. She has snacks. And I mean, granted, I send her to school. She starts at 8 o'clock. They eat lunch at 10:30 in the morning. They're dismissed at 2:10. And they have a snack like right before dismissal. And then when she goes to after school, they do more snack time. Um, but nobody cared if you had a snack. And now, oh, and the other thing too is the amount of after school programs that exist in the school that weren't there when we went to school. It's, I mean, granted, you have to pay for them, but, um, if you worked as a parent, you either had to make sure you were home by the time your kid got off the bus, or you just gave them a key and hoped for the best. Um, or that, you had to find daycare, some kind of childcare for them. Whereas now they have aftercare in the schools, or different places offer aftercare and they bus the kid from the school to the facility. None of that existed when we went to school.
Yeah, no, it's a whole different world.
Hmm.
So let me ask you, has becoming a parent later in life shaped your confidence or given you more patience, do you think?
Um, I have more patience with her, but she also knows that I don't have patience, and neither does her father.
Right.
Um, so, you know, I think my tombstone's gonna say, "I can do it myself,"
Yeah,
because
right.
she's like, "I can do it myself," or "I wanna do it."
Yeah,
And that'll be
yeah,
on my tombstone because she's gonna "I do it myself" to death me,
yeah.
as much as I love her. Um, I mean, I think it's made me a little bit kinder toward, and makes me think about, well, what are other people going through, and just kind of giving them a little more grace than what I may have ordinarily done. But yeah, patience toward her, but I don't think any more patience to everything else. I still get road rage walking through the grocery store.
Yeah. Or on the sidewalk.
Oh my gosh. Ah!
So, do you when you do trust your instincts, you think, more than maybe some younger parents do, given your experience and your Gen X nature? Do you feel like maybe you are more comfortable with your instincts? I just go back to thinking about how everything's Googled and looked up and the being afraid to make a
Yeah,
mistake.
I mean, I couldn't imagine being a parent without Google, because there's stuff where my husband and I are like, "I don't know, what do you think this is?" And then we'll Google
Right,
it and
right.
we're like, "Oh, okay, it's this. All right, we're fine." But I do feel I am a little bit more secure and confident in things, just because I've had a little bit more life experience. And I'm also at a point too where I really don't care what people think about me. Um, but I mean, there's still things that come around, like my daughter's health and well-being, that I might go a little overboard. So, for example, this last Friday, I got a call from her aftercare program saying that she's crying, saying that it feels like her tooth is stabbing her and she wants to go home. And this is not my kid. I mean, she'll walk around with an ear infection, strep throat, not really say much other than, "Oh, my throat hurts, mommy," and that's it.
Right,
So, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, my kid's crying. This is really wrong. This isn't her." And then I call the dentist to try to get in before 5 o'clock on a Friday of a holiday weekend. And they're like, "Oh, well, is it this? Is it that?" I'm like, "I don't know. They just called and said she's crying and I want to have her looked at." Go in to find out, oh, yeah, it's her 6-year molar is starting to come in, and
right.
it's like right under the gum line. So, did I maybe overreact a little bit? Yeah, but I also wanted to make sure my kid was going to be fine going into a weekend. I'm not taking her to
Right.
urgent care on Sunday.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Well, yeah, I could see where that's a judgment call. As a parent, I've waited too long and then I've done the opposite and rushed.
yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's all of us at some point.
Yeah.
So, I have one final question for you. What
Oh.
advantage as a Gen X parent do you think you bring to the table, like with other moms?
Mm.
What's your superpower as a mom that comes from being a different generation?
I think making a decision and sticking with it.
Mhm.
and not waffling back and forth a lot of, "Oh, should I? Shouldn't I?" It's, this is what I wanna do, and this is I'll see it through and hope it turns out the way I want it to.
Yeah, it's like it's greater confidence and yeah,
Yeah,
just more comes with more life experience.
yeah,
And again,
absolutely.
it comes I think it also comes through that life experiences, what we went through, how we were
Mhm.
raised and we turned out okay, right?
Yeah,
Like, yeah, that
yeah,
sense of
yeah, my
it's
parents
going to be
totally
okay.
trusted us, and if we did something that, violated that trust, we found out about it and were punished accordingly and, given another shot.
All right, I have a little bit of a rapid fire round.
Oh,
Okay. So,
okay.
and I know Maddie's, young, only
Yeah,
5, but think about some of them might be a little more when she gets a little older. So just kind of
okay,
imagine you're there.
okay.
Freedom or structure?
Freedom.
Okay. Check-ins or trust?
I think it depends who she's with.
Okay, fair enough. Um, drop off or hover?
Drop off.
All right, one Gen X parenting trait you're proud of.
Gosh, a little bit of that fuck around and find out.
Right, right. Yep, got that.
Yeah, now that she's getting a little older, she's experiencing that.
Love that. All right, and one modern expectation you quietly or maybe not so quietly ignore.
That's a good one. Gosh, I honestly don't know.
Well,
May
it could be
maybe
the big crazy birthday parties.
yeah, definitely the crazy birthday parties for sure.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, definitely crazy birthday parties, but also, like, another thing too, I meant to say it earlier, when we were talking about boundaries and, not kissing the baby and that, I
Right.
remember when Maddie was a baby, and we were still trying to figure out COVID, and, everybody's like, "Oh, I wanna kiss the baby, kiss the baby." Um, yeah, so you could either kiss her foot or you could kiss
Right.
the top of her head. You can do
Yeah.
that, but, like, don't get too close to the mouth and that because 1, COVID, but 2, she was still getting all her vaccinations
Yeah.
and that, and so I wasn't sure what was coming in on people.
No, no, it's so funny. I'm still not allowed to kiss Theo on the face or like
Mhm,
so the back of the head
mhm.
or the hair or anywhere there's clothes. So that's where we are right now.
Yeah, so it was
But
my thing.
uh, yep, it's a
Yeah.
thing.
Oh, and then can I just say one more weird thing that goes to, like, the birthday parties?
Yes.
When did everybody start doing participation trophies?
When did we start? My kids have participation
I
trophies.
I don't get that. I like,
Yeah, yeah.
y
They're young
there's
millennials.
yeah, there's winners and there's losers. I mean, could you
Yeah.
imagine what the workplace would be like if they had participation interview jobs? Like, "Oh, we liked you. You didn't get this
Well,
job, but you participated in the interview, so here we have this other job for you."
that's part of why millennials, people had a real hard time with them when they first came into the workplace.
Mhm.
So I would say participation trophies happen for 25 to 35-year-olds right now all have
God.
participation trophies. And that's why I think it was a big thing. Or, we've got a lot of people, I think, in the workplace, that want to be promoted before they've earned it or just
Yeah.
because they put their time in. And to me, that goes back to participation.
Mhm.
It's if somebody comes to me and wants to be promoted or wants a raise, they need to have a rationale why they deserve it.
Yeah.
And I think that would probably shock some people, some young professionals, is that, "What do you mean? I'm here, I did my time, I'm doing what I need to do. What do you mean I need to have a rationale?" You know
Yeah,
what I
it's
mean?
like,
And I
I'm
think that
here,
comes
that's
from that
enough.
part, right? That participation stuff, right? Just
Mhm.
showing up. You should be rewarded for showing up. But yeah, that's your 25 to 35-year-olds are raised with that.
No, that's one thing where when I look at some of the sports and they say, "Oh, we encourage this, this, and this, everybody will get a participation trophy at the end." I'm just like, "Why?" I'm like, "First, second, third, that's it.
Wait,
No more."
are they still doing that?
I've seen that on some of the like team sports things in the area.
Boy. Yeah, I thought people were actually pulling back on that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, luckily Maddie's not in the competitive sports arena yet,
Right.
but is in a number of sports that it can go that way.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
I don't like that one at all. But so,
yeah,
yeah, I don't think that helps a lot of things.
yeah.
So, yeah, I'm shocked to know that that's still a thing because
Mhm.
it's not productive
Yeah.
for anybody.
Yep.
All right. Well, Becky, thank you for
My
joining me.
pleasure. Thank you for inviting me. This was fun.
Yeah, it's fun, right? Just a little
Yes.
conversation.
Yes.
And I always knew we'd be aligned.
Yes. Yes.
All right, you.
All
Well,
right.
thank you.
My pleasure.
I'm gonna when we were kids, no one tracked us. No one checked in every hour. No one needed an app to know we were okay. We had freedom, we had trust, and somehow we learned to figure it all out. Parenting today asks for more visibility, more communication, and more involvement. But that doesn't mean old instincts still don't matter. So maybe the question is not, do you know where your children are? Maybe it's, do you trust them enough to find their own way? And have you given them what they need to find their own way? Thanks for listening to You Turned Out Okay. If this episode made you laugh, nod along, or feel a little more confident in your parenting instincts, I'd love if you'd share it. And I hope you join me next time because however we all got here, we all turned out okay.